Following his surprise collaboration with Mario, Sonic appeared alongside and opposite many famous faces from various other franchises. At the same time, he continued to star in his own adventures across a range of genres. He's one hardworking hedgehog. This is the evolution of Sonic, Part 6. In 2007, fans of the Blue Blur were introduced to the Storybook series of games when Sonic and the Secret Rings was released for the Nintendo Wii. Formerly known by the working titles Sonic Wildfire and Sonic and the Secret of the Rings, it was the first 3D Sonic game since Sonic 3D Blast to feature our favorite Hedgehog as the only playable character in story mode. Of course, several other characters appeared in the game, but many were completely new to the franchise. Some older faces did return to portray Arabian Nights characters, like Tails playing the role of Ali Baba, and Knuckles as Sinbad the Sailor. Funnily enough, they're recognized in-game by Sonic, but they do not recognize him in return.
Tails? What are you doing here too?
Tails? My name is Ali Baba.
The game kicks off when Shara, the genie of the ring, emerges from a book and into Sonic's world.
You are the blue hedgehog.
Ah! What the?
She reveals that an evil entity known as Erasure from the world of Arabian Nights is absorbing the book's power and causing its pages and the world within to disappear. If he isn't stopped, his power will be unleashed onto the real world, unless the legendary blue hedgehog told of in the stories can stop him. Well, I wonder who that could be referring to. Enemies described as spirits are scattered throughout the game, and each has different traits according to their color. For example, red enemies project fire. Some foes require Sonic to use a special skill in order to defeat them, and there are 104 skills available in total throughout the game. Players can complete the story in 10 to 15 hours, but those who want to unlock bonuses and all of the aforementioned skills can spend up to 30 hours doing so. While story mode is clearly the main focus, other game types such as adventure, party mode, and special book can be played. Party mode features mini-games, similar to those seen in Sonic Shuffle, whereas Special Book mode allows players to experience all of the bonuses unlocked by beating levels quickly. Unlockables include behind-the-scenes movies, cutscenes, video interviews, concept artwork, and music. Metacritic gave Sonic and the Secret Rings a score of 69. The game was a commercial success with 1.2 million copies sold, despite some critics not being a fan of the story and the game's tough controls. 2008 saw the sequel to Sonic Riders, subtitled Zero Gravity. The racing game for Wii and PlayStation 2 centered around a legendary artifact known as the Ark of the Cosmos. This mysterious item, which can control gravity, is coveted by both Sonic and the returning Babylon Rogues from the first game. How do they settle this dispute? By extreme gear competition, obviously. Similar to its predecessor in terms of overall gameplay, the addition of gravity control is a feature that lets players enter zero gravity so long as they have built up enough gravity points by performing tricks. By doing so, they can access previously inaccessible areas and shortcuts. Players can also use gravity control to maneuver around sharp corners more easily. Sonic Riders Zero Gravity received underwhelming reviews, similar to the first Sonic Riders game. It received a score of 56 from Metacritic, and while the graphics were praised, the control scheme was despised, with critics describing a broken interface that rendered the game almost unplayable. A third game in the series titled Sonic Free Riders came out in November 2010, exclusively for the Xbox 360. It made use of the Kinect's motion sensor, and despite having great graphics and multiplayer options, it was again let down by poor controls. GameSpot said in their review, quote, "Lousy controls hinder almost every attempt Sonic Free Riders makes at being a fun racing game."
Into the me, into the unknown, so
It received a low score of 47 from Metacritic, making it one of the worst-rated Sonic games of all time. Perhaps in need of another leg up from his gaming counterparts, Sonic was included in a 2008 crossover fighting game called Super Smash Bros. Brawl. It was the third installment in the Super Smash Bros. Series and the first to feature third-party franchises. Sonic became an unlockable character who could be obtained in one of four ways. These methods involved beating the adventure mode known as Subspace Emissary, playing 300 matches of Brawl, playing a total of 10 hours of Brawl, or completing Classic Mode with 10 different characters. The other third-party character to be included was Solid Snake from the Metal Gear Solid games. One of the stages in Brawl is modeled after Green Hill Zone, Sonic's home stage, which is unlocked alongside the character. Alternative music for the stage can also be unlocked and used in custom stages. Green Hill Zone has a number of exclusive features, such as collapsible hillsides and star posts, which can be knocked around to inflict damage on opponents. Tails, Knuckles, and Silver all make cameo appearances in the background. Since his first appearance in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Sonic has returned to appear in later Super Smash titles, such as the 2014 Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS and Wii U, plus Super Smash Bros. Ultimate in 2018 for the Nintendo Switch. Fun fact, unlocking Sonic in Super Smash Bros. Brawl was well worth the effort, even for non-fans of the spiky hero. That's because he was the fastest character in the game, taking over from Smash Bros. Captain Falcon. Sonic's final smash was also pretty epic, as he harnessed the power of the Chaos Emeralds to transform into Super Sonic, making him practically invincible and able to damage anything in his path. In September 2008, Sonic broke ground in the RPG genre by appearing in a role-playing game on Nintendo DS called Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. Developed by BioWare and published by Sega, it focused on events surrounding the kidnapping of Knuckles the Echidna and the disappearance of the Chaos Emeralds, which then led into a much larger story. The game was generally well received by critics, earning a score of 74 from Metacritic based on 54 reviews. Its in-game environments were described as bright, colorful, and cheery, undeniably nice-looking with slick presentation. The cutscenes were also said to be visually sharp. Chris Scullion of Official Nintendo Magazine called the game a fantastic Sonic game and a superb RPG game in its own right. The next major Hedgehog game to be published by Sega was Sonic Unleashed, which arrived at the end of 2008. Its story followed Sonic attempting to restore a world that had been split using the power of the Chaos Emeralds. Once again, thanks to good old Dr. Eggman. This task is made harder by the fact that Sonic occasionally transforms into a new form, that of Sonic the Werehog, due to energies generated by the corrupted Chaos Emeralds or Dark Gaia. A new sidekick named Chip also makes his debut in the game. Gameplay combines two main styles of play. First, the daytime stages are playable as Sonic and are reminiscent of the 3D and 2D side-scrolling platform levels seen in Sonic Rush and Sonic Rivals. Fast-paced action and lock-on mechanics for automatically targeting and hitting enemies return, while new features like Drift and Quick Step allow Sonic to slide around corners and dodge obstacles, respectively. Second are the 3D beat-em-up style stages that contain platforming and puzzle elements. These nighttime sections are when players play as Sonic the Werehog. The stages are much slower in comparison, and as a werehog, Sonic gains strength, allowing him to smash enemies and destructible environments. Meanwhile, stretchy arms let the werehog reach high platforms and perform special attacks. A port of Sonic Unleashed was made for the Nintendo Wii and the PlayStation 2. It was co-developed by the Osaka-based development studio known as DIMPS and featured many differences compared to the PS3 and Xbox 360 version. While the story and its plot are identical, features such as hub worlds, final bosses, and nighttime levels vary in terms of gameplay and appearance. If you don't know which one to choose, one Redditor's advice is, if you like daytime Sonic, go for the PS3 360 version. But if you like the Werehog, I'd recommend the Wii and PS2 versions, since the levels are shorter and the combat is streamlined. Critics tend to favor the PS2 port overall, though neither version received particularly impressive reviews. The PS3 version scored just 54 with Metacritic, while the PS2 version registered a slightly higher score of 66. "2009 saw Sonic & Company return to the storybook series in a game titled Sonic and the Black Knight for the Nintendo Wii. The second entry in the series, after Sonic and the Secret Rings, this tale was set in the world of Camelot. As such, playable characters include Knights of the Round Table like Sir Galahad, Sir Lancelot, Sir Percival, and many others. Fittingly, a new form of Sonic is introduced too. Excalibur Sonic can be achieved with the magic of the 4 sacred swords. Gameplay combines Sonic's trademark speed platforming with a new sword-fighting mechanic that utilizes the Wii's motion-sensing functionality. This results in a playstyle similar to Legend of Zelda games like Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. Most of the action takes place in 3D, but occasional 2D gameplay occurs when the camera shifts to a traditional side-scrolling perspective. Reviews of Sonic and the Black Knight were mixed, to say the least. Nintendo Power awarded it an 8 out of 10. Stating the gameplay is pulled off in a fine fashion, whereas IGN gave a dismal 3.9 out of 10, because most of the dialogue is so badly written and the camera proves downright obtrusive at points. A huge frustration. Based on 45 reviews, Metacritic recorded a review score of 55 for the game.
Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing!
In 2010, Sonic was involved in yet another crossover series. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing was developed by Sumo Digital and released for the Wii, Nintendo DS, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Microsoft Windows. A mobile version of the game was also developed by Gameloft, and an arcade version was released in March 2011. A kart racing game with over 20 playable characters from various Sega titles. It played similar to well-known racers like Mario Kart, with players collecting power-ups to boost their speed or hamper their opponents. As in Sega Superstars Tennis, each character has a star move unique to them that they can use against their opponents. Sonic, for example, can transform into Supersonic using the Chaos Emeralds, and then perform a supersonic boost down the track, flipping any rival racer he comes close to. Tails can create a tornado using his plane, and Amy Rose can pull out her Pico Pico hammer to smash anyone unlucky enough to get in her way. Sega characters from outside the Sonic universe include the likes of Banjo and Kazooie, Alex Kidd, Ryo Hazuki from Shenmue, Beat from Jet Set Radio, BD Joe from Crazy Taxi, and others. Items known as capsule items, which can be picked up on the track and used against opponents, include Sonic's signature speed shoes, a mega horn that creates a destructive sound wave that flips rivals, and a confusing star, which targets the nearest rival and dazzles them by temporarily flipping their game screen upside down and spinning them out. Up to 4 players can play at once on split screen, and up to 8 players can compete on a single track online. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing received mostly positive reviews, registering a score of 78 with Metacritic. GameSpot gave the game an 8 out of 10, declaring that smooth controls and a bunch of awesome tracks make this an exciting kart racer. However, they weren't a fan of having fringe faces like Big the Cat in the game, calling their inclusion scraping the bottom of the barrel when looking for characters. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing was one of the best-selling and most profitable Sega games of 2010, having sold over 1 million copies by the end of that year. Fun fact, Knuckles' All-Star move is considered to be the most powerful of them all. If the player holds the required button long enough, his fist turns bright red and vibrates in a fast motion. Should the player let go at that point, it causes a devastating earthquake that knocks over every other opponent. In 2012, a sequel called Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed hit store shelves. As hinted by its title, the game involved a new transformation element. Players' cars could change into a plane when in the air and into a boat when on the water after passing through a transformation gate. In addition, the tracks themselves would transform during a race. In Dragon Canyon, for instance, the bridges are destroyed by dragons in the track's third lap, requiring racers to switch to flight mode. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed was deemed to be even more fun than its predecessor, scoring 82 on Metacritic. IGN gave it an 8.5 out of 10, calling it one of the better racing games of 2012, though still not as great as Mario Kart 7. Eurogamer, however, awarded a 9 out of 10 and said, "This manages to be more than just a tribute to the great and good of Sega's past. It does enough to earn its own place alongside them." Fun fact, many of the same faces returned for the sequel, but there were some interesting third-party characters. These included real-life racing car driver Danica Patrick, Wreck-It Ralph,
No way! My car just turned into a boat!
and Simon from Yogscast. If you don't know about Yogscast, it's a pretty famous Minecraft commentary YouTube channel. Simon's inclusion was part of a promotional DLC for charity. Finally, a Sonic racing game series that was actually well received. A sign of things to come? Maybe. Well, let's just say Sonic started getting weirder in the 2010s. You'll see what I mean in Part 7. Click the video on screen to keep watching.